This question is about Miraleste representation. Since no director candidate is from Miraleste, how would you assure that Miraleste homeowners' issues would be adequately presented and considered with a PVE exclusive board?
Okay, I'd like to maybe start with the question you asked about how do you be responsive to all the communities. And I've had the privilege of serving on over a dozen board of directors of for-profit companies and not-for-profit entities. And it's very important in any board in which I serve that I'm representing all of the stakeholders and all of the shareholders. In fact, you have a fiduciary duty to do so. So I think this is not a matter of representation from one part of PV or Miraleste or whatever. I think you need to represent everybody. As far as knowing what the issues are, I'm a big supporter of greater communication and greater transparency. So I would advocate having more open forums where, as directors, we would go out and invite people to come talk to us about what their issues are, and invite members of the community directly interact with us so that we understand what their issues are and what those differences might be through different parts of our community. So I think it's very important to respect the needs of all of our community, including Miraleste, but it doesn't necessarily mean we need to have a representative from Miraleste, just as we don't need one from Lanada Bay or Valmonte or Monte Malago or Malaga Cove. We all represent all of our constituents.
Thank you. Reed.
Yes, I agree. Anyone that serves on the board needs to represent all the communities. So having someone from Miraleste would be nice. It would be an appropriate thing to do. And I think that what we can do is, I think as was mentioned earlier, we don't have a good really comprehensive email list. We need to build that up and be able to contact people like in Miraleste so that they're more aware of, for instance, like running for the board and contacting them. Also, I think a tradition that we've had in the past is always to have an annual meeting over at Miraleste. I think that should be continued. And in that meeting, we should open things up for communications with them, to allow them to participate more. And we haven't, the board really hasn't had any subcommittees. And I think we can get more involvement by having some subcommittees for things like parklands, maybe on the view issue, and some other things where we can also engage the Miraleste people in committees like that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles.
I think it's very important to get representation for all the people that are embodied within the PV Homes Association. The current board has a representative from Miraleste, so and we do have meetings once a year at the Miraleste site. So I think it's to be able to encompass the needs of the whole. I like John's idea of having forums and soliciting community input, regardless where they sit, whether they're with the PVE or from the Miraleste area of Rancho Palos Verdes. I think it's a great way to get feedback from the community. But I think it's also essential for them to have some voting authority within the Homes Association.
Thank you. Okay, down to Marlene.
Okay, I'm going to try not to repeat what some of the other people have said because they're all really good comments. On the topic of subcommittees, this year we've also actually started that process. We have 3 or 4 subcommittees running right now in the Homes Association, and one of them is for views, there's one for communication, there's another one for something really interesting. In 2022, there's going to be a National Olmsted Celebration, and I think that's an opportunity for PVHA to really open its doors and to help educate the community, bring some historical information out, and get us all excited about where we live. As far as representing the other areas of Palos Verdes Estates and Miraleste, fortunately, with my business as a landscape designer, I've worked all over the hill, and I've worked also off the hill. And the Miraleste residents respond to RPV as a city, so the structure is a little bit different. But it's been really exciting to see how each community has a different character and different concerns. And I think that by experiencing these communities, I'll be able to bring that to the board and represent them effectively.
Thank you. Gain.
So Rancho PV is very interesting. My husband and I lived there for 3 years before we moved to PVE. We do know some of the issues there. I will agree, though, I think Miraleste is a very unique situation that does demand their own representation because they're under our HOA, but under the city requirements and codes, et cetera, of Rancho PV. So, however, I would like to put that to a vote of all the HOA members. My guess would be that because there's only something like 343 lots or, voting members of Miraleste, that might not pass. So I think it would be a good idea to put on a ballot something like that to say, can we have a permanent representative from Miraleste? I like the idea, but I do think it probably should be put to a vote. They might get outvoted or not, but at least let's hear what the communities, all the other communities want to say about it, because it is very unique as opposed to all the other areas in PVE. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick.
Well, I think it is important that we do serve the entire protected area.
It's,
I do think it's important. I do
think-
think it's important that we do take care of the entire protected area, which includes Miraleste. But the Miraleste people themselves need to get involved also. There's nothing that prevented any one of them from trying to run in the selection. They can sign up for our email blasts. We can probably find some other ways to communicate with them. We do meet over there once a year. We could probably work with Carol to get some people that would be involved in Miraleste. I will say that serving on our board and living in Miraleste is real service. I mean, because it's not a fun drive, and it's and the way the meetings work, there's often tremendous traffic issues that you have to deal with.